Hey guys, today we're taking a look at my spider deck. This deck was requested by Shiny Hunting Forever, and spiders are just an archetype based on putting your opponent in defense position and taking huge advantage of the fact that they're in defense position. So all the spiders kind of have effects that revolve around that, and as I get into the deck, you'll kind of see how that works. So first off, Meiru Beetle. This card is obviously a Meiru card. Not a spider, but it's so perfect for this deck type. Obviously it's a Meiru, so you need to have spiders in your hand to keep it alive, but that's not too big of a deal. And he's also a beater. But obviously the power comes from his big effect that he's going to switch all light and dark monsters that get special summoned into defense position. So, a majority of cards these days that are meta and that are strong cards are light and dark. There's a lot. So a lot of people will special summon them in attack position. And it getting changed to defense is just huge for this deck. So it starts to become very powerful for how this deck works. And again, having a beater, very good in this deck because a lot of spiders have low stats. And then Spyder Spider. So this one has 1500 attack, not horrible. And when it destroys defense position monsters, which should be often because of how this works, it can special summon more insects from your graveyard. So with that, you can XYZ or just have more monsters on the field to do what you need to do, which is very effective. And then we have Ground Spider. Ground Spider is just nice that, when he gets flipped, you can just kind of make your opponent kind of keep changing the defense position while he stays on the field. So very annoying for your opponent. They're going to have to destroy him eventually, and with the other cards in this deck, that becomes very annoying. And then we have Armored Bee, so another interesting addition to this deck outside the spiders. I definitely wanted another monster with, okay attack. His effect's very powerful, that he can lower opponent's attacks in half, which can lead to some very nice plays, especially in combination with some of the other effects we have. Still debating this card. Obviously it's not as good as like Gale, which lasts forever, but it can be enough to really annoy your opponent and set up what you need to do. And then we have Howling Insect, just a really nice card to search out spiders. A lot of them have 1500 attack or less, so that just works out really nicely. And then Informer Spider, very nice defense. And if he gets sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can just take control of your defense position monsters that your opponent has, which can be very effective because of how this deck works. They should have a lot of monsters in defense. Obviously, they can still run over him, so it can be a bit tricky, but still can be a very useful card in the right situation. And then Relinquished Spider, just really cool that you can just use this card to blow up your opponent. Because their monsters should be in face-up defensive position, and I'll talk a bit about that in how the deck works, but using Relinquished Spider in combination with some of the other stuff can lead to some very powerful plays. And then Mother Spider. So this one is just kind of like it's kind of like Reptilian Vasky. You can use two of your opponent's monsters and just special summon it very easily. So very, very powerful as long as you can use its effect and get your opponent into defense position, which should be able to happen pretty easily with how this deck works. And then Spider Web, just a field card for this deck. Very, very annoying for your opponent to deal with. Monsters that attack get switched to defense position and can't be changed, which is very, very annoying, especially when you're activating all these effects that rely on your opponent being in defense position. They're going to get annoyed really quickly with what you're doing. I'm also running Solidarity, giving our insects a boost. Definitely a choice if you want to do that or not. For me, I like trying out kind of Solidarity builds with this type of thing because we're using all insects, so it's up to you. And then Shield Crush, obviously in a deck where you're putting your opponent into defense, this could be very powerful. And then MST, Enemy Controller, very, very good for this type of deck. Dark Hole, obviously, for the traps, mostly stable traps, but 3 no entry. Super powerful in this deck. All attack position monsters good at defense, allowing you to do really, really good plays with this deck. No entry is just a really good card for spiders, and I wouldn't recommend you run spiders without this card just because of the really good combos you can do. So now for the extra deck, a variety of XYZs. Obviously you don't want to use them too much because you're using Solidarity, so it runs in the way of that. If you don't want to use Solidarity, it won't be much of an issue. But we have Gachi Gachi and Zenmaines just because we have a little bit of chances to get that out. For the 4-stars, we have a lot of variety because we have a lot of different ones we can use. So Silent Honor, Lightning Chidori because we have 2 Armored Bees, Fairy King because we have all Earth. One tangent I just want to go on really quickly is if spiders were dark, you could just throw Maestroke Beetle in this deck and it would be awesome. He would get the bonus from Solidarity. He would, be able to protect your field card, but that's a tangent I don't want to go on. Let's just say I wish spiders were dark. Get that out of the way. But because they're Earth, you can use Fairy King. Gagaga Cowboy, Lavalval Chain, useful for this deck. Maestroke, Exciton Knight, Diamond Dire Wolf. Because we have Mother Spider, we can get up 6 stars in case. So Ptolemy, Photon Strike Bounzer, Inzektor, and Gaia Dragon. Definitely good because we're switching our opponent to defense position a lot. So now for the side deck. Again, side decks in my videos are kind of just recommended cards that can also work with this deck. It isn't meant to be a side deck for matches, so don't try to think of it this way. It's more of just, ideas that you guys can think about when you're building your own spider deck. So Infernity Beetle you can run if you want to, do more synchro stuff. Not really what I'm trying to do. Magical Merchant, you can use that to get spiders in your graveyard because that's effective for some of the cards we're using. Gokipon can search out a lot of this deck. If you're running Infernity Beetle, definitely run Underground Arachnid, can be very powerful. Stumbling is another very powerful continuous spell for this deck. Spider's Lair, I just don't think it's worth running over having just spider web, so, but it's up to you. Creature Swap can be really good in this deck because of the fact that a lot of the spiders have low attack, and your opponent will be able to switch out the positions, so this could be really nice. Verdant Sanctuary, really good for refilling your hand. Book of Moon, useful in a lot of decks, but you can see the power of it here. Foolish Burial, again, having a spider in your deck is very important. Spider Egg is a defensive trap you can use that's for spiders. Curse of Anubis, another trap kind of like No Entry that just helps you out. Security Orb, another thing that kind of helps you out with defense position. Needlebug Nest, another thing to mill your deck so you can get things into the graveyard for your effects. And Dark Mirror Force is actually really interesting for this deck. I thought about running this. Could be extremely powerful, but the problem is obviously it's when your opponent declares an attack, so it kind of has to have a certain combination on the field in order to make use of this, but could be really interesting. So that's my spider deck. Definitely very fun, very unique. Has an interesting playstyle. I would like to see more support added and more cards added, so I don't have to rely on a lot of outside support, but still really interesting, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. But if you guys have your own spider decks, you could post below. Let me know in the comments. You could talk about what cards you use, make suggestions for me, and that kind of thing. But that's about it for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.